42nd gene key. Letting go of living and dying. Programming partner, 32nd gene key. Codon ring, the ring of life and death. 3, 20, 23, 24, 27, 42. Physiology, sacral plexus. Amino acid, leucine. The 42nd shadow, expectation. Waiting at the expectation station. Almost all human beings are waiting at the expectation station. Expectation is the most profound mark of humanity. It is the dream that the future holds a greater promise than the now. Somewhere inside us, we are all waiting for our lives to improve, for a great day somewhere in the future when finally all will be exactly as we dream it can be. Somehow, we will receive all the money we need, our love lives will be perfect, and we will have absolute freedom to do all the things we have always wanted to do. But not now. First, we have a few things to clear up before we can be truly happy. And so we go on, postponing and postponing until we are old, and then of course it's almost too late. In fact, it's never too late to be in the now. You have only to see through the futility of your personal expectations. If you can do this totally and with absolute honesty, you will discover one of the secrets of being human and being happy. The 42nd shadow is that aspect within your genetics responsible for keeping you always sitting at the expectation station. It does this by entangling your desires with your mind. When you listen to the 30th gene key and learn more about the nature of desire, you will see that desire in and of itself is not your enemy, and as long as it is pure, it can take you to great heights. However, the moment desire becomes entangled with the projections of your mind, it can only result in disappointment. The 42nd shadow is actually one of the shadows at the source of all human mental fear, because the 42nd shadow concerns death. This is the gene key that literally programs us to die, and it exists in every living cell as a built-in design for decay. Because our neocortex perceives life as time flowing by, it is the source of our anxiety about time running out. The notion of time and your response or reaction to its passing is rooted profoundly in this 42nd gene key, which closes all natural life cycles, and in particular the 7-year cycle of growth and decay. 7-year cycles have been noted by cultures all around the world for millennia. However, the most powerful 7-year cycles are the ones that appear to govern cellular generation within the human body. There is an old adage we learned at school that every 7 years we have a new body, since most of its cells have been totally replaced. This means that every 7 years we arrive at a portal of some kind, and something must die in order for a new cycle to begin. How that transition occurs is the domain of the 42nd gift or the 42nd shadow. The 42nd gene key is one of 6 gene keys that form a complex codon group in your DNA, known as the ring of life and death. In all cycles of physical cellular mutation, life is programmed to follow the archetypal processes represented by these 6 gene keys. All cellular life begins with the 3rd gene key and ends with this 42nd gene key. The 3rd gene key catches the essence of the beginning of life through the gift of innovation and its city of innocence. All life must innovate and adapt, beginning in innocence and gaining in experience. Through the 42nd gene key, life ends with the gift of detachment and the city of celebration. Thus, spiritual essence detaches itself from form, just as we human beings must detach ourselves from those who have passed away. At the highest level, all death is really a cause for celebration, as we shall see when we come to explore the highest frequencies of this gene key. Through this shadow, human life is programmed to revolve around your expectations about your life and those surrounding you. Expectation itself should not be seen as a bad thing. It depends on how you react to your own expectations and is a measure of how much trust you have in life. Whenever you feel circumstances moving out of your control, you can immediately see how attached you are or how detached you are. Every time you identify with an expectation, you set yourself up for disappointment. It is actually possible to hold an expectation without being attached to it, which occurs quite naturally with the 42nd gift of detachment. If you are able to expand your consciousness and raise the frequency of this shadow, you will remember that you are merely a part of a greater natural cycle, and that all events fit into a far wider picture than you can usually comprehend. Expectation and disappointment only plague you when your vision narrows to the event that you are caught up in, rather than seeing its place in a wider picture. As we human beings so often learn in life, many disappointments actually turn out to be enormous blessings. The programming partner of the 42nd shadow is the 32nd shadow of failure. It is easy to see how these two shadows genetically reinforce one another to set you up for what you perceive as failure. In fact, the moment you think in terms of success and failure, you have already failed because you have become embroiled in expectation. For such an innocent-sounding word, expectation actually plays havoc with our lives. The mind only sees what you program it to see, which means that, at one level, it is actually co-creating your reality and influencing the flow of events around you. If you are expecting something bad to happen, you may not actually notice the good around you, which means you cannot take advantage of it or even enjoy it. By the same token, if you are expecting something wonderful to happen and it appears not to, you miss out on the potential contained in the event before you. Your expectation takes you out of the present moment so effectively that you lose your place in the greater flow of the cosmos. Whether your expectation is optimistic or pessimistic, it narrows your field of vision and closes down the limitless potential that exists in each present moment. Repressive nature, grasping. When expectation manifests through a repressive nature, it becomes an inability to let go and a continual grasping at life. These people simply do not want things to end and do anything to keep everything the way it is. This is a deeply rooted fear of change. Obviously, everything in life does come to an end in order that something new can be born. There are many ways in which people resist change. Through trying to remain young, through not allowing our loved ones to go their own way, through clinging in some way to the past. However, this clinging actually makes these people gradually wither away. When we do not embrace change and allow things to die and decay naturally, we prevent life from renewing itself, thus sapping our own healthy energy and vigor. Reactive nature, flaky. The reactive nature finds itself unable to fully complete anything in life. This is another way in which expectation subtly undermines us. These people try to avoid disappointment by not really making any form of commitment in the first place. They move from one thing to another without allowing the natural life cycles to complete themselves. The dilemma is that they continually get stuck in the same old patterns. By breaking a cycle before it reaches a natural conclusion, they simply have to begin the same cycle again in a different form. No matter what they do to escape the negative patterns, they keep reappearing in their lives. This can be a disaster in relationships and in their finances. People who are flaky have a deep-seated inability to follow through with things. They are unconscious victims of their own expectations, regardless of whether they are pessimistic or optimistic. The 42nd gift, detachment. The reader and the writer. Detachment is a concept that the Western world finds quite challenging to understand. As one of the great aims of Buddhism, detachment appears at first to be an anti-materialistic philosophy that denies any sense of true immersion in the world of the senses. However, the gift of detachment, when fully understood, allows you the greatest freedom to explore life in its many facets. Despite how the word may sound, to be detached does not mean to not feel. In fact, if you are truly detached, you will feel more intensely than others because you will not have allowed your expectation, positive or negative, to constrict the event you actually experience. With detachment, you can even enjoy the experience of being disappointed. Detachment occurs in the opposite way than one might think. True detachment cannot be forced through discipline. Any attempt to force detachment simply creates more attachment. This is often the reason why long-time celibates or monks fall from grace through their sexuality. You cannot hold down a natural impulse indefinitely. With true detachment, one yields to every feeling absolutely. This does not mean that it has to be acted upon, but that it must be embraced, allowed, and accepted. Oscar Wilde said that he could resist anything but temptation, and this is the essence of detachment. Not to resist temptation, but to dive into it with vigor, whether that be an internalized experience or an outer manifestation. Detachment presupposes a great love and trust in life. It is about working with your expectation rather than being a victim of it. Detachment arises quite naturally of its own accord when you yield and trust in life. The 42nd gift allows you to trust in the ebb and flow of events around you and to accept the growth and decay of our bodies and lives. This gift sees life as a series of stories or tapestries intricately interwoven with each other. Even though you cannot immediately see the outcome of a given situation, you know that it is connected to a prior situation and bridges to another situation ahead in the future. With this detached perspective, you may begin to feel rather like your life is a book, and although you are the hero or heroine writing the story as you go along, you are also the reader, fascinated and absorbed, but never lost in the words or details. The detached perspective of the 42nd gift allows you to let go of your expectations very quickly as life continues along its own course in spite of you. It also means that you can see clearly the places in the storyline where you still wish to exert some control. You realize that if you do not let go quickly, the emotional and mental waters will close over your head and drown you in torrents of your own regret, anxiety, and self-pity. The gift of detachment represents the separating out process between the emotions and the mind, and it takes place naturally as the frequency passing through this gene key rises. With detachment comes both understanding and healing. There is a great understanding and freedom that comes to every human being who surrenders deeply enough to their life. You learn to accept your own mortality and the intricate flow of events around you. With detachment, you become truly centered in your own being. You discover the gift of detachment through succumbing to your own humanity and the ordinariness of life. Then you appreciate life through your senses. You breathe the air deeply into your lungs, and you do not balk at suffering or adversity. The 42nd gift of detachment represents the process of letting go of control over your life, physically, mentally, and emotionally. It is a wonderful letting go that travels deeper and deeper into your DNA as you gradually allow your expectations of life to fall into the background. The more you accept yourself the way you are, the more detached you become, and the simpler life becomes. The 42nd Siddhi, celebration, the punchline. The 42nd Siddhi is about the transcendence of death. These are the sages who teach humanity about the illusion of death. They do not teach us through knowledge, but through their attitudes. This is a state beyond detachment. Detachment can never reach right to the core of existence because it feeds on the duality of the observer and the observed. In detachment, the observer watches the observed. When the 42nd Siddhi explodes, and it does explode, the observer becomes the observed. The indwelling awareness merges back into its source, pure consciousness. With the 42nd Siddhi, there is only one manifestation occurring, and this is the state of celebration. Everything is experienced as dying, just as it is with detachment, but the difference now is that something, somewhere deep within the vehicle, begins to laugh. This laughter rocks the whole vehicle, since it emerges from the source of creation. The 42nd Siddhi sees the punchline of what it means to be human. When someone has entered the doorway of death deeply enough within themselves, they discover the profound meaninglessness of existence, and as this great truth begins to permeate them from the inside out, it literally kills off every aspect of their own identification with what they are. The joke at the heart of all creation can only be experienced directly. It lives within the heart of every cell of your being. You are constantly in a state of dying. Every cell within your body is dying from the moment it is created. So in essence, you are not really alive at all. You are simply a passage through which matter is endlessly converted into energy. When your awareness stops identifying with all this movement and finally comes to rest, you actually disappear. It is rather like sitting by a river and following the currents and eddies with your eyes as they continually disappear from view. If you stop watching the river and simply gaze at it with your peripheral vision, you often have a curious experience of timelessness. The river no longer has a direction. It simply comes at you and out of you from every part of your being. This movement of life that isn't really a movement is the sound of celebration. You do not know whether something is being born or something is dying. There is simply the endless pulse as the river laughs at the meaningless of it all. The transition from the shadow to the Siddhi, from expectation to celebration, does not occur within time. The process of detachment emerging over time as you accept your shadow patterns is in fact an illusion. Even though it may feel to you as though you are making progress from one state to another, nothing has really occurred. Awareness is simply playing with itself. In a sense, it is playing at being serious. Awareness enjoys the seriousness of being on a quest, of being a hero or heroine within the drama of your life. However, when the Siddhic state is experienced, a great realization dawns. You have always been asleep. Even as you thought you were evolving and that you were doing really well at being detached, you were still asleep. You cannot be half awake. You are either asleep or you are awake. In spiritual circles, we often use the word awakening as though this were a steady progressive occurrence from one state to another. In fact, it is a sudden occurrence. It is not even an event. It is the end of all events. The 42nd Siddhi really is akin to someone suddenly getting the punchline of a joke. Up until that point, the whole storyline was a setup that was leading to this final insight. And as with all great jokes, you can only laugh because in a sense you have allowed yourself to be tricked. The physical mirror of these truths can be found in human DNA. The DNA helix uses human forms to continually reshape and reinvent itself. It is like some cosmic serpent that endlessly keeps shedding its skin. Our bodies are those skins. Neither can you break through to this truth. The chains of DNA cannot be broken. It is more that you somehow slip through the net, almost as though it were a mistake, and suddenly you see the joke, that we are not those skins. We are the serpent, timeless, unpredictable, fluid, and playful. The one in whom the realization of this city has dawned is filled with laughter, and all they wish to do is share this laughter with others. They do not know how or why this has occurred to them, and they do not know whether it will occur to anyone else. The civic state occurs outside of the human mind, silencing all the noise. There are no practices that assure it will happen. There is nothing at all anyone can do to trigger this state. It simply happens according to fate, which enrages the minds of those to whom it hasn't occurred. This is why there is nothing to do except celebrate. What else is there left to do? Celebration is the direct manifestation of true awakening, rooted as it is in the utter helplessness of what it means to be alive and dying inside a human body.